Well, hello. I'm at the park and it's not that busy right now, so it's okay. And I'll try to get over my social, filming in public anxiety by doing this and stretching out a little bit. Yeah, that works. So it's a beautiful day. It's very warm. And this is going to be another ramble, another talk, since I realize I'm enjoying doing those very much. So, regarding the last video, don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't like kids, okay? It's not that I don't like kids. I like kids. I love joking with kids, joking around with kids. I love teaching kids, seeing their progress. Obviously, I'm a dance teacher, and I love having this connection to my students. It's most of them are children, some of them teens, and some of them adults, older than I am. But yeah, even the young kids, it's all I can say is I really love it, and I love to see what I taught them, and I like kids. That's what I'm trying to say. And more importantly, or more something that's even more cool than that, I guess, is apparently kids like me, which is something, which is cool. You kind of feel like you're doing something right when kids like you. um, so that's a little bit of a, you know, telling you what I meant with the last video. It's not that I don't like children. It's just that I don't want to have them for myself. The reason I started teaching isn't to be close to kids, for sure. It's because I loved the work, I loved the dance, and I realized I also loved teaching. So that's really where all of that happened. And then having apparently a really good connection to my students, to my kids, came naturally. It just came with it, and I'm really, really thankful because they're all amazing people. So the real topic of this video is, I heard this term on TarotTube, non-threatening tarot deck. And that's really, I have some things to say about that. Okay, so non-threatening tarot deck. I mean, I get it. I get it. Fine. I think we mean, when we say non-threatening tarot deck, this new deck, or this old deck, this deck that I use for clients because it's a non-threatening tarot deck. Because I know some people getting their cards read can be very, very scary. So having a non-threatening tarot deck, I get it. Also for people who start learning the tarot, who are beginners and who are very, again, they feel uncomfortable actually, and it's this weird thing to them. Then I guess a non-threatening tarot deck, yes, would have its strengths. And I think what we mean when we say non-threatening tarot deck is that there aren't any scary images depicted in the 78 cards. And that doesn't really sit all that well with me, to be honest, because I get the whole hug deck thing. Trust me, I have one or two hug decks. I even did the hashtag a few years ago. What are hug decks? And even then I started challenging the idea of what actually is a hug deck. Is it really just a non-threatening tarot deck? Is it really just a deck without any scary images or confronting images? Or is it just a feeling that you get from that particular deck and it doesn't really matter what is depicted? Like, for instance, I consider my favorite deck, the Triomphe della Luna, a hug deck. because it's my favorite one, and because I can find myself in it, because I see myself in it, I recognize parts of myself in it. And you see how that's different. It's not just, oh, I can't be confronted with anything harsh today, so I'm grabbing for this deck. What? My hair is flying. um, it's actually much more, I want some type of comfort, and it doesn't really matter what type of comfort it is. The example, the Triomphie de la Lune having that outcast energy, which is something I am embracing now more than ever. Oh man, if only you knew. I'm going to share it with you when I'm ready. Boy, this sure is a hell of a year. Yeah. Okay. So I'm guessing the non-threatening tarot deck, what we mean by that is really no images that are too harsh, that are scary, that can be considered super confronting. Although, you know what? That confronting part of it brings me to what triggers you. Something that is triggering. Now, we can have positive triggers as well as negative triggers. Of course, now we're talking mostly negative triggers. But how can we ever make a deck that is truly non-threatening? Because I'm going to be that one person in the back of the class raising my hand going like, I'm threatened by this non-threatening tarot deck, or I'm triggered by this non-threatening tarot deck, because I want to be I want to be triggered. I want to be confronted. I want to work with the shadow. I want to have a better relationship with the ego, or really completely annihilate the ego. Stuff like that, it's like, it brings us back to the question of, why do we tarot? Why tarot? Why use tarot? Why do we use the cards? What are we trying to find? What are we trying to learn? And are we trying to grow? Or are we trying to comfort ourselves? Obviously, both is valid, and I do both in my practice, believe me. But the main thing still, and it is what the tarot teaches us, it's what the Book of Life teaches us, it's about change and transformation. And when we focus on non-threatening, non-triggering things and images, and that we are never pushed outside of our comfort zone to change, then I believe we don't actually help that energy being put in motion, because it is about transformation. You could say, out of the 22 majors, 20 cards are about transformation and about change and about flux and about the only thing that is constant is change and all of that. Basically, I'm saying that if we put the emphasis so much on staying within our comfort zone, or trying to comfort ourselves, which again we're allowed to do, and it's part of a healing process that we are all in some way or another dealing with. But when we focus on that too much, I think we stop evolving, we stop learning. Again, I think the tarot really does teach us to change and tackle life, really, and stop ignoring things. It's the whole shadow work aspect of working with the tarot, obviously, but also in a more metaphysical or esoteric way, in a more magical way, you could even say. The cards tell you to do, to go, to change, to to kind of go for it. Most of the time it's, well, not most of the time, but there's a lot of that energy of go, do, experience, try. There's a lot of encouragement. Again, of course, depending on what cards you get, obviously, and what message comes up, but you know what I mean? It's a non-threatening tarot deck. That term triggers me. That term triggers me because I don't think it should be, I don't really think it should be a thing. Yeah, I think that even in our own personal hug decks, and even if, consider a deck that is made to be uh, a hug deck, that it's called the Hug Tarot deck. Okay, just made up a thing. The Hug Tarot deck. Even that deck, I think, in its full essence of what it is, of what it's supposed to be for people, a comforting deck. Even that deck, I think, would and should, in my opinion, but I think that deck would have confronting images. Because either way, going back to the point that I was trying to make earlier, either way, people are different, right? How, yeah, I mean, Ricky Gervais was talking selfish, but actually, in a way, yeah. How selfish are we to think that we can change society? It's part of this, okay? It's not, I'm not saying this is the only truth. I'm just saying it's part of this conversation. How selfish are we to think that we can change society around us to fit our own needs? This I'm talking about, it's triggers. What triggers me doesn't trigger you, and vice versa. I mean, there are just so many people. There are just so many people on Earth. How can we ever expect to have a triggerless deck? What I'm saying, I will be that person in class saying, excuse me, but this non-threatening tarot deck is triggering me because I need, I need to have confronting images. And those confronting images, funnily enough, they can become a hug deck because you understand them, because you go deeper, because you try to understand them, because you actually have to make an effort to face something that you might not want to face. And I think that is actually much more healing than just having images that are pretty and tell you everything's fine all the time. A non-threatening tarot deck, that would basically be the Rider-Waite-Smith type thing, but without the 10 and 9 of swords, and with the tower renamed. I mean, make all the swords feathers. It could be no version of the Thoth deck, that's for sure. But this is one of the things why I like the Thoth deck, why I like to work with the Thoth now, because it's very challenging. And even though I get a lot of love and beautiful messages from that deck, and I use it for clients as well, there's a lot of love in the deck. It's also very much, it's about freedom and breaking free and, being your own person and being your own genius and really creating your own life. And I mean, for me, that translates to get out of your shell, use the element of fire, go, do things, experience things, live life in an active way, not in a passive way, and try to change and make things happen for yourself. Of course, I get it. Sometimes we don't have the energy. I mean, last week's video, I don't think I smiled once. I was just so dead tired. But that's just me sometimes, okay? And I don't know what I'm trying to say with this. I know I trigger some people in my surroundings, in my daily life. I do actually trigger people by not smiling all that much. Still, it's 2022, and people are still, grown men are still telling me, a grown woman, to smile. And then months later, I get into a similar weird conversation, and I'm told that I look like I'm having a terrible time and I'm not motivated. All just because I don't have a permanent smile on my face. So I'm done with that type of negativity in my life, okay? Yeah. And I will smile when there's something to smile about. Yeah. So look, that was a little bit of a sidetrack because I can't tell you what that exactly was about. It's just a little super weird and vague anecdote from my daily life. So I already talked about Thoth, I already talked about Rider-Waite-Smith. Marseille obviously also has plenty of triggering images. But again, what triggers you might not trigger me, and how are we ever going to make a triggerless tarot deck? If that's even, I mean, I guess that is the idea, right? Because confronting, triggering, threatening, all of those things are kind of the same thing in tarot world, don't you agree? Maybe I misunderstood, but that's what I understand of the term non-threatening tarot deck and what we are actually trying to achieve and find. And again, I see the strength that it might be less scary for beginners, whether you get a reading or you try to learn the cards. But again, actually, my experience, in my experience as a professional tarot reader, it happens so often that a person sits in front of me, and if they're really scared, if they're really, they're nervous and their hands shake and everything, and it's like, oh, this is my first tarot reading, and I'm really scared. I'm really, quite terrified sometimes. And I try to make sure that they relax and everything's fine, nothing's scary. Guess what cards they get? Ten of Swords, Death card. I mean, it happens so often. And you know what I implement in the reading is you are meant to get these cards. So you are meant to go through these scary parts of life and see that it isn't that scary. It's like pain. The fear of pain hurts more than the pain itself, often. Okay? Same with that scary thing. It's the fear is what makes it big, the fear of the unknown. And once we have gone through that unknown, which is terrifying, but once we're on the other side, it often doesn't seem like such a big deal. So I remember one reading with the death card in the middle, and I said, with the surrounding cards, the death card could have been another card. It could have easily been something with less confronting imagery. But you pulled the death card. So that means that you were supposed to see that confronting image. So go through the fear, right? You can implement that stuff in your readings. Also, if you read for yourself. I read for myself a lot. The deck I have with me to display, to show you some cards that I consider very, it is a challenging deck, but I've learned to love it, honestly, since I last worked with it intensely. It's the polka. This is all sorts of bloody deck. And due to the colors, this is mostly, I see that as a winter deck because it's very deep, rich colors, and there's a lot of dark green and red mixed together in the same card. So that's just, Christmas, the holidays for me. And all the people look very cold and like they don't know each other is what I've made out of it. And they look very pale and unhappy, like they've never seen the sun. And then it's inspired by Marseille, but it's not. But here you see, the Arcanum 13 really basically fertilizing the soil. And the funny thing is, this could be considered a threatening tarot deck because of all the blood and the so-called guts. And just the vibe of the quality of this deck, that it's, like I say, I don't think there's a genuine smile on any of these people. So it's not as warm as the Triomphe de la Luna, where I feel every demon is a little friend and everybody knows each other and they are welcoming you into their world. This is a world where you are actually not welcome and they don't know each other and they don't want to know each other. They don't even try. But I still kind of love it. And the thing is, with all this blood, wait, let me show you another card. I just want to show you the face cards. Yeah, with all this blood and gore, it can be triggering and confronting and threatening, but it's also really funny. I mean, isn't it hilarious? Just look at that. That's supposed to be the King of Wands. Here's the Queen of Wands. Looks like she did that to the king because she was fed up with him. Here's the Hangman. And here, what would that be? The Knight of Cups fell off his horse. Horse was fed up. The funny thing is there's a lot of humor in Marseille anyway, but in this deck especially, this is the Paulina Tarot, which is a deck I'm never going to get rid of because it's great and it's funny and it's cool and it's beautiful. And now that I've rebacked it, it's actually good quality. The thing is though, everybody, including myself, thought that all of these pink or red, well, how should I call that? Like threads, I guess, on the cards depict guts, intestines, or intestines. I can tell you, as a half French person, who I think I got this from the little white book that came with the deck, they are not supposed to be intestines. They are supposed to be umbilical cords. Now, if you have this deck, think of that while you flip through the cards and see that we are actually looking at an umbilical cord around the world hermaphrodite. It's not guts, it's not gore, it's actually about rebirth. This is the perfect example of what I'm trying to say in this video. Something is deeply threatening or triggering for some reason or another. And once you look at it more closely, you realize it's actually something really beautiful and it's symbolic for your own transformation and rebirth. Now, obviously, we also get this, but I mean, there's so much that we can get out of it. The skinned horse. I mean, it reminds me of a snake or a reptile that loses its skin, right? So here it's a horse and it looks weird and maybe a little bit confronting, but get the symbolism out of it, you know? Come on. I'm telling you to work a little harder, basically. And at the same time, obviously, I'm telling myself because we can all still learn about this stuff. So yeah, this is what I wanted to share with you today. And I think that's it. I'm gonna enjoy this wonderful weather and look at the little doggies playing because they've been here all along. Okay, have a good weekend. Bye everybody, thanks.